They lied to you about women. You've been sold a fairy tale. They told you women are gentle, nurturing, selfless, that love is pure, devotion sacred. But what if I told you Nietzsche saw through this illusion over a century ago? What if the truth about women isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous to the modern man's fragile ego? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll either hate me, or finally understand why most men can't handle what Nietzsche really said. And trust me, you won't see women the same way again. The fairy tale trap. From the moment you could understand words, you were fed myths. That the right woman would complete you. That her love would heal your wounds. That she was somehow purer, kinder, better than you. Nietzsche called this out as the greatest deception men inflict on themselves. Not because women are evil, but because men are cowards. Afraid to face the raw, unflinching truth. What you call love is often just need dressed up as virtue. You don't adore her, you adore what she represents. Validation, purpose, an escape from your own inadequacy. And she knows it. The illusion of female worship. Nietzsche didn't hate women. He hated the lies men told about them. The lies that turned them into angels or monsters, but never human beings. Think about it. Why do men crumble when a woman leaves? Why does her rejection feel like a verdict on your worth? Because you handed her the gavel. You made her your judge, your savior, your mirror. And when she walks away, the illusion shatters, and you're left staring at the cracks in your own psyche. Nietzsche warned us, when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. But men today? They'd rather gaze at their own reflection in a woman's eyes than confront the abyss inside themselves. The brutal truth you've been avoiding. Women aren't your redemption. They're not your therapists, your moral compass, or your cosmic reward for being nice. They're players in a game older than civilization, a game of power, survival, and calculated influence. While men were busy building empires, women mastered something far more subtle, the empire of emotional leverage. Not because they're manipulative by nature, but because history gave them no other choice. No swords. They wield silence. No authority. They perfect persuasion. And modern men, they're still blind to it, because admitting it would force them to admit they've been the ones being played. Love or addiction. You say you love her, but what you really love is the way she makes you feel seen. Chosen. Enough. That's not love. That's addiction. And like any addict, you'll rationalize, bargain, and debase yourself to keep the high. Nietzsche saw this centuries ago. The demand to be loved is the greatest of all arrogant presumptions. Yet men still kneel at the altar of female approval, begging for scraps of affection, and calling it devotion. But here's the question no one wants to ask. What if she's not your salvation, but your test? A test most men fail, because they'd rather worship than see. The myth of female innocence. Let's shatter another illusion, the myth of female innocence. Nietzsche saw through it first. That wide-eyed gaze. The gentle touch. The way she seems to dissolve into vulnerability. You call it purity. He called it power. Because while men are out here flexing muscles and wealth, women mastered the art of strategic surrender. They don't conquer, they invite conquest. And in doing so, they dictate the terms. Think about it. Who really controls intimacy? Who sets the pace of commitment? Who holds the power to devastate you with a single cold glance? You call her emotional. Nietzsche would call her a tactician of the heart. The modern man's fatal mistake. And here's where modern men implode. They mistake a woman's adaptability for weakness. They see her empathy and assume it's submission. Big mistake. Empathy is a radar. It tells her exactly what you crave, what you fear, what strings to pull. While you're busy protecting her, she's reading you like a blueprint. Nietzsche warned us, in revenge and in love, woman is more barbaric than man. But this isn't about revenge. It's about realism. The moment you realize her tenderness isn't weakness, but weaponized understanding, is the moment you stop being a pawn in a game you didn't even know you were playing. The hardest pill to swallow. Now, the toughest truth. You were never in control. Not when you paid for dinners. Not when you played the provider. Not even when she whispered, "I need you." Because need isn't surrender. It's negotiation. And men. They've been negotiating with their own delusions. The delusion that her tears mean she's broken. They don't, they mean she's communicating. The delusion that her submission means you've won. It doesn't, it means she's choosing. Nietzsche put it bluntly, everything about woman has one solution, pregnancy. But strip away the shock value, and you'll see his real point. Biology is strategy. And men who ignore this will keep losing, not to women, but to their own blindness. The crossroads. So where does that leave you? At a crossroads. You can keep clinging to the fairy tale, pretending women are either angels or demons. Or you can do what Nietzsche demanded. See clearly. Not to resent women, but to respect the game. Because the game won't change. But you still can. The tests you didn't know you were taking. You've been taught that vulnerability is strength, that opening your heart makes you noble. Nietzsche would laugh at this modern weakness. Real strength. Seeing the game for what it is, and choosing to play consciously. Women don't respect vulnerability. They respect controlled vulnerability. The man who shares just enough to create intimacy, but never enough to lose power. That's the brutal truth modern psychology confirms but dares not say aloud. The primal dance of attraction. Consider this, when a woman tests you, with silence, with jealousy, with withdrawal, she's not being cruel. She's being evolutionary. These are the same tests women have used for millennia to separate the strong from the weak. The man who chases after her when she pulls away? He fails. The man who remains unmoved? He passes. Nietzsche understood this primal dance when he wrote, "The woman's whole nature is a solution to the problem of how to take the weak position in appearance while actually being strong." Modern men collapse under these tests because they've been brainwashed by romance novels and Disney endings. They think persistence equals devotion. It doesn't. It equals neediness, and neediness is the ultimate repellent. The power flip. Watch what happens when a man truly internalizes this. He stops fearing a woman's moods. He stops interpreting her behavior as judgment of his worth. That's when the power dynamic flips, not through domination, but through self-containment. Here's what Nietzsche really meant about women. They're the ultimate reality check. When a man makes a woman his purpose, he's already lost. When he makes self-mastery his purpose, that's when he becomes undeniable. Not because he's learned tricks or manipulation, but because he's finally understood the oldest truth of all. The only love worth having is the love given freely to a man who doesn't need it to feel complete. The hidden negotiation in every interaction. The modern dating landscape is a minefield of unspoken power dynamics. Most men fail to recognize them. Nietzsche saw this coming. The way civilization would soften men while sharpening women's instinctual edge. While men were busy building comfortable lives, women maintained their ancient survival skills. A reading micro-expressions. A detecting neediness. A sensing power shifts in a single glance. This isn't conspiracy. It's evolutionary biology refined through centuries of necessity. What they don't teach you. Every romantic interaction contains a hidden negotiation. When she asks, "What are you thinking?" she's not just making conversation. She's probing for emotional leverage. When she withdraws affection after an argument, she's not being petty. She's demonstrating the ultimate female power, selective access. Nietzsche grasped this when he observed, "Women understand the value of scarcity better than any economist." The commodity, their attention. The price, your autonomy. The painful irony, most men willingly pay this price, while calling it love. They mistake obsession for passion, attachment for devotion. But here's the uncomfortable truth, real attraction cannot coexist with dependency. The moment a man makes a woman his emotional center is the moment he becomes predictable, and predictability is the death of desire. Emotional sovereignty, the ultimate power. This is why Nietzsche warned, the man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies but also to hate his friends. Because true power lies in emotional sovereignty. Modern psychology skirts around this truth with platitudes about healthy attachment. But Nietzsche cuts deeper. All attachment is vulnerability. The question isn't whether to connect, but whether you can connect without losing yourself. Most men fail this test spectacularly. They either become 1. Domineering, a transparent overcompensation, or 2. Supplicating, an admission of weakness. The rare man who finds the balance? He becomes magnetic, not because he plays games, but because he's genuinely indifferent to outcome. This isn't manipulation. It's self-possession, the lie of sameness. The most dangerous lie modern men believe? That equality means sameness. Nietzsche would scoff at this naive notion. Men and women are different organisms, shaped by different evolutionary pressures. To pretend otherwise is to blind yourself to reality. Women don't want men who mirror their emotional patterns. They crave men who stand firm in their masculine essence while respecting her feminine nature. This isn't about dominance. It's about polarity, the electric tension between opposites that makes passion possible. The epidemic of lukewarm love. Consider the modern epidemic of passionless relationships. Why do so many couples settle into lukewarm coexistence? Because they've eliminated all tension, all mystery, all dance of opposites, in the name of comfort. Nietzsche warned about this when he wrote of the last men, those who prioritize safety over vitality. The feminine doesn't respond to safety. It responds to a strength that doesn't threaten, a confidence that doesn't dominate, a presence that doesn't smother. This is the razor's edge few men learn to walk. The unspoken truth about respect. Here's what your father never taught you. A woman's respect must be earned anew every day. Not through grand gestures, but through quiet consistency. Not through words, but through being. The man who understands this stops trying to prove himself, and simply becomes undeniable. He realizes female desire isn't triggered by what he does for her, but by who he is without her. This is Nietzsche's will to power applied to relationships. Not power over others, but power over oneself. The nice guy paradox. Let me reveal the uncomfortable truth about so-called nice guys. They're not nice, they're calculating. Nietzsche saw through their martyrdom complex centuries before psychology put a name to it. These men don't give selflessly, they give transactionally, secretly keeping score while pretending to be noble. The woman always senses this hidden contract, this unspoken, I was nice, so you owe me, mentality. That's why genuine kindness attracts, while covert contracts repel. It's not about being too nice, it's about being inauthentic. The modern masculinity crisis. The modern dating crisis stems from men abandoning true masculinity while failing to understand authentic femininity. We've created generations of men who are either 1. Aggressive and domineering, misunderstanding strength as force. 2. Passive and apologetic, misunderstanding kindness as weakness. 3. Manipulative and resentful, the worst combination of both. Nietzsche's solution? Become the man who transcends this false dichotomy. The man who can be both gentle and unshakable, both compassionate and boundaried. This isn't about changing who you are, it's about becoming who you're capable of being. What women really want. Women don't want perfect men. They want real men, flawed but authentic, strong but evolving. The tragedy is most men are so terrified of rejection, they never show their genuine selves. They either perform alpha posturing or beta supplication, both equally inauthentic. Nietzsche called this living beneath oneself, the greatest sin against one's potential. Here's what no one tells you. A woman's ultimate test isn't of your success or status, but of your congruence. Does your outer life match your inner reality? Do your words align with your actions? The incongruence detector. Women have a sixth sense for incongruence, which is why faking it till you make it fails in the long term. The path forward isn't about learning tricks to manipulate women, but about developing the discipline to master yourself. Not to become perfect, but to become integrated. This is what Nietzsche meant by become who you are, not some polished persona, but your fullest, most authentic expression. Ironically, this is also what makes a man irresistibly attractive. Not because he's trying to be, but because he's stopped trying to be anything other than himself. The validation trap. The modern man's greatest weakness? His addiction to female validation. Nietzsche saw this sickness spreading even in his time, men measuring their worth by women's approval like emotional junkies chasing their next fix. But here's the brutal reality no one wants to admit. Validation is the opposite of respect. The more you crave her approval, the less she'll actually admire you. This isn't female cruelty, it's human nature. We instinctively value what we have to earn, not what throws itself at our feet. The paradox of attraction. Consider this paradox. The men who care least about getting women tend to attract them most effortlessly. Not because they're playing hard to get, but because they're genuinely hard to get, consumed by missions greater than romance. Nietzsche called this, having a why that can bear any how. When a man's purpose transcends his relationships, he becomes magnetic, not as a tactic, but as a natural consequence of living fully. The tragedy? Most men discover this truth too late. After years of chasing, performing, and contorting themselves to fit what they think women want, they become human chameleons, changing colors for each new romantic prospect until even they don't recognize themselves anymore. The bridge no one can build for you. Nietzsche warned about this self-betrayal when he wrote, "No one can build you the bridge upon which you must cross the river of life. No one but you alone." Here's the secret elite performers and ancient philosophers alike understood. Women are most attracted to men who have something more important than women in their lives. Not as a manipulation tactic, but as an existential reality. This is why the greatest lovers in history were always men of substance, artists, warriors, thinkers, builders. Not because they followed dating advice, but because they were too busy creating to obsess over approval. The path forward. The path forward isn't about memorizing pickup lines or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming so engaged with your own growth that romantic success becomes a side effect rather than the goal. This is what Nietzsche meant when he spoke of self-overcoming, not the destruction of desire, but its transformation into something greater. The man who achieves this doesn't chase women. He attracts them naturally, precisely because he stopped making them the center of his universe. The dangerous myth of easy love. The most dangerous modern myth about relationships. That love should be easy. Nietzsche would call this the ultimate decadence, the belief that anything worth having shouldn't require sacrifice or struggle. Real connection isn't found in comfort zones. It's forged in the fires of challenge and growth. Women don't want a man who makes life easier. They want a man who makes life more meaningful. This is why the greatest romantic relationships in history were always partnerships of mutual elevation, not mutual coddling. True strength versus modern vulnerability. Modern men have been sold a poisonous fantasy that vulnerability means emotional dumping. They confuse oversharing with intimacy, weakness with authenticity. Nietzsche saw this coming when he warned about the democratization of weakness. True strength isn't about hiding your emotions, it's about mastering them. The man who can sit with discomfort without needing to perform or explain himself, that's the man who commands respect. Not through domination, but through self-containment. The law of evolving attraction. Here's what the dating gurus won't tell you. A woman's attraction isn't static. It's a constantly evolving response to your ongoing evolution. The man who stops growing, who becomes predictable, is the man who slowly becomes invisible. This is why Nietzsche insisted that one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. The most attractive men aren't those who have everything figured out, but those who are clearly on an upward trajectory, restless, curious, always becoming. The great inversion. The ultimate irony? The more you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, the less you'll worry about dating techniques. Not because you stop caring about women, but because you start caring more about your own potential. This is the great inversion few men achieve, moving from need-based relationships to choice-based connections. From "I'm with you because I need you" to "I choose you because I want you." This shift changes everything, not just your love life, but your entire existence. The final truth. Nietzsche's final word on the matter? Become who you are, and then have the courage to stand by it. The rest is commentary. The quality of your relationships mirrors the quality of your character. You don't attract who you want, you attract who you are. When men complain about only meeting toxic women, they reveal more about themselves than they realize. Want better partners? Become a better man. Not as a strategy, but as a way of being. This is what Nietzsche meant when he said, "You must become a flame, because only then will you stop chasing butterflies and start attracting moths to your light."